Good afternoon, guys. It is June 24th, 2022. On this video here, I want to just go over some things about life expectancy in appliances, machines, vehicles, things like that. I just want to ask this question, are you getting the full life out of the machine that you purchased or the vehicle that you purchased or whatever it is? Or are you replacing them prematurely just because they're old? Now, this is something that I just think about. I understand every circumstance is different, but one thing that I want to talk about is getting the full life out of what you paid for. And that includes keeping things cleaned out, keeping things maintained, keeping things, in good shape. Because I see a lot of people who just ask, well, I don't know why my things aren't lasting so long, and blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, I think part of it has to do with the way you use them and how you take care of them. That is the biggest thing that I want to get across. Basically, you need to make sure that you are doing the proper maintenance and repairing things, replacing any worn parts, and getting the maximum life out of whatever machine it is, whether it's a vacuum cleaner, a washer and dryer, a car, a refrigerator, anything like that. I think that you should be able to get the full 20 to 25 years out of a piece of equipment. I mean, it's just common sense. I mean, if you spent so much money in the first place, you want to protect that investment, and you want to make sure that you are getting every ounce of life out of it. And especially with the times that we're living in right now, getting the most out of anything that you can is going to help you in the long run. Just because something is old doesn't mean it is no longer good, because I can tell you from personal experience, we have had a lot of appliances that are 20 plus years old that have been working just fine, and we've never had any problems with them. So why waste money on replacing them? Now I completely understand that things have their lifespan and things happen, but the whole point I'm trying to make is there's this common misconception that's going around that because it's broken, it's automatically just not worth fixing. Well, I mean, in a lot of cases, repairs are very simple, and sometimes they don't even require parts. Um, Sometimes they require parts, and sometimes they don't. And in some cases, if they require parts, sometimes the parts are way cheaper than buying an entire new machine. And it just makes a whole lot of sense to, get as much life out of a machine as you possibly can. And one thing that I want to talk about as well is things that are worn out, especially if you end up needing to replace a machine and you get pretty much the identical setup or a machine with very, very, very similar or the same parts, don't just throw that old machine away. If you can, part it out and salvage parts. And I know that might sound crazy and weird, but think about it. If there are still good parts on that machine, it might be helpful to have some of those parts sitting around if it can be used on your new machine. If it can't, then obviously don't worry about it. But that's not always the case. And maybe this is just coming from my perspective as somebody who likes to repair things, because literally I have taken vacuum cleaners and other things like that from the curbs that people just throw away, and if I can't get them fixed and running, sometimes I do just part them out, for if I need, a good part for another machine that's in better shape, that's actually worth fixing. It's just, and you don't have to save every part, you don't have to save every body piece, everything like that. But I'm just saying, on-off switches, certain pieces and parts that can break, or that's a common wear item. If it's in good shape, just, save it, reuse it if you can. But the moral to this whole video is, you should be able to get the full life out of your machine. 15, 20 years at least. You should be able to get at least 10, 15, 20 years out of a good appliance that's made well and made to be repaired, and making it last for as long as you possibly can is going to really help in the long run, because if it still works and it still serves you for what you need it to do, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, it may not be fancy, it may not be perfect, but there's just certain things that I think getting the most out of things is just wise. We throw so much away in our society that it's just ridiculous. I mean, you're never going to get away from having to throw stuff away. Believe me, I mean, there are things that are just flat out worn out and they're junk and there's just no salvaging anything. You know, I'm not saying like hoard stuff. I'm not saying like, keep junky stuff. I'm just saying just use your mind and just be smart in the way that you use your resources and be resourceful, because I guarantee you there are so many machines that I've found in the trash that have literally just been abused to no end, and they may be badly beaten up, and sometimes they're just clogged. And, people just throw them away and they don't see the value. I think people waste so much money in throwing things away and not taking the time to figure it out and get it back up and running. Now, do machines and things like that have their lifespan? Absolutely. Nothing lasts forever. But, if you take care of something from the very beginning and you get a good machine, there's no reason that you couldn't get 15 or 20 years out of it. I mean, if you really take good care of it, if you keep it clean, if you keep it in good working order, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or something else, you should be able to get the full 20 to 25, 30 years out of something, depending upon the environment, depending upon how hard you use it, whatever machine it might be. But the moral to this whole video, like I said, is I think people need to just think long term as well and take care of what they already own, because I think people have just gotten more and more lazy, thinking, oh, I'll just go down to Walmart and I'll get another one and that'll be it. Instead of just taking care of what they already have, just because there's a problem, people tend to assume that, it's just not fixable. And I think we've been trained to think that way in our society in the last, 20 or 30 years. And it's just not true. I mean, don't get me wrong, some things are just outright disposable and there's just no getting around it and it's just garbage. But, that's not the case with everything. And, the biggest thing is just keeping things going for as long as you can. And it will ultimately save you a lot of money. I mean, I think a lot of people just don't think about it because they're like, I don't want to take the time. Well, if you don't want to spend money on replacing a machine all the time, like a vacuum cleaner or something, you have to maintain it. You have to treat it nicely. You have to take care of it. I mean, there's just no other way around it. Otherwise, you're just going to be going through machines like crazy, and you're not going to get the full life out of it, because I can tell you, I've seen some vacuum cleaners that have been just abused to no end. And, they cleaned up nicely, but they were just trashed in the beginning. And I guarantee you, if that person had just taken care of it and taken the time to keep it clean and in good shape, they most likely would have had that for another 5 or 10 years. But because they didn't, they had a big mess on their hands, and, it probably shortened the life of the machine because it was blocking off airflow to get it cool and keep it going. So, bottom line is, you can get the full life out of what you have already purchased. And yes, it takes work, it takes maintenance, it takes consistent care, but if you're not willing to do that, then I don't want to hear complaints about, well, my vacuum cleaners just don't last, or, whatever. And I don't want to hear complaints about how expensive everything is, because you're not willing to take care of what you own in the first place and trying to make it last. Now again, I completely understand that there are certain circumstances, and this is not talking about everybody. I'm just talking about the majority of people who just complain about their things breaking, their things not lasting, and they just trash them. You want to know why it's not lasting? It's because you're being absolutely abusive to it. And you should be able to get a good long run out of something. Like, for example, my mom bought an iron, a clothes iron, back in 2010, I believe, brand new, for just $30 at Walmart. Did you know that we still have that thing today in 2022? It still works. It still works. Is it perfect? No, I mean, it's used, it's worn, because it's 12 years old. But, sorry, my allergies are driving me nuts. But it still works, and it has lasted us a very long time because we have taken care of it, we have descaled it, we have cleaned it out, and how much longer is it going to last? There's no guarantees, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get another 5 years out of it, at least. So, and the other thing is, my parents have a washing machine from 2005. It's 17 years old, as well as the dryer. Bought them together as a set, brand new. And just within the last couple of weeks, it stopped agitating. And I took it upon myself to do research, figured out what was wrong, found the part. Do you know that part only cost me $35? Compare that to the price of like $800, $1,000 for a brand new washing machine, or even a couple hundred for a used one. You know, that is a huge amount of money that you've saved by doing that. And the washing machine was running perfectly fine, except for it just wasn't agitating. Did you know that all it was a little coupling inside the washer drum? I didn't even have to pull out the machine or take it apart to get to it. I just had to pull the agitator off, unbolt the coupling, get a new coupling, put it on, bolt it back on, and then snap the agitator back in. That is all I had to do. And now it's back up and running. Try to figure stuff out before you automatically assume that it's just not worth fixing, or, oh, it's old anyway, so might as well just get a new one. You know, try to figure it out. This is part of being financially smart, is making it do. Make do with what you have. Be content with what you have. Making the most out of what you already have, because, you know, it's not always easy to just go and buy another machine. For one thing, I couldn't afford to go out and buy another machine even if I wanted to. Financially, I just can't afford that. You know, and so it's just, you have to like make do with what you have. You have to make it last as long as you can. Now like I said, I understand that there's a time and a place where, you know, the thing is just had its life, it's had its time, and it's time to replace it. But that is not the case with everything. You know, cars. You know, I hear this all the time. People say, well, I will never drive a car that has like 200,000 miles on it or whatever, because it might break down. Okay. Let me tell you one thing. I don't care how old or how new a car is. Any car could break down without warning. Something can happen at any time. Both of my parents' cars have well over 200,000 miles on them, and one of them has about 300,000 miles on them. They are both Toyotas, and they have lasted a long time. Are they perfect? No. But I will say that they are the smoothest vehicles that I think we have ever had. The smoothest running vehicles I think we've ever had. They are both, one of them is 25 years old, the other one is 17 years old at this point. Both of them still driving. They have ice cold AC. There's no problems with that at all. You know. So we're going to continue to drive them until they literally stop driving. You cannot be afraid of a car breaking down, because when you don't have the money you can't afford another car. And when you need a car, sometimes if you only have $3,000, $5,000, you get a car that's $3,000 or $5,000. That's just the bottom line. And you make do with what you have, you make it work, and be thankful that you have a vehicle. So, because I will tell you, I actually know someone who they have a 10-year-old car. It's a 2012 Honda Civic. Like 54,000 miles on it. Very, very low mileage, especially for a Honda. That's like nothing for a Honda. One night, their shifter box wouldn't shift into certain gears. You know what it was? It was just an axle or some kind of rod that came undone. And it was only like a $600 or so repair. And that's all it was. And most likely, they still have they have a ton of life left in that vehicle, especially if they take really good care of it. Keep the oil changed, keep everything clean, keep everything rotated. They're going to have that vehicle for a long time. So you cannot worry about a car breaking down, because that's an example of even a very, very low mileage car that has far less miles on it than our cars do, and it still broke down and had an issue. It can happen at any mileage point, at any period of time. I mean, it can happen the minute you drive it off the lot. It can happen 5 years down the road. It can happen 10 years down the road. It can happen 20 years down the road. It can happen. So you can't be so concerned about the age of things, and you need to just make things work, the best you can. And I'm not saying go out there and, get something that's like ancient that you can't get parts for or anything. If you can't get parts for it and you can't fix it, then, you're better off upgrading, because it's just not worth it, because you can't get anything for it. But, look and see if you can, before you jump to conclusions that, well, it's just time to replace it. So, anyway, I just wanted to do this video. But yeah, make sure that you get the full life out of what you have. Be content with what you have. Make it last. Make it stretch. And I guarantee you, it will serve you for a very long time. If you take care of something, it's going to take care of you. So, anyway, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.